Good day, everyone. I'm really excited today to get to show you my own amateur radio transceiver. This is a Yaesu model FT-470 dual band 2 meter and 70 centimeter handheld amateur radio transceiver. I'm not sure exactly when my unit was made, but I do know that these were introduced in 1989, and I haven't been able to find a concrete date of discontinuation, but it was around 1993 or 94. And mine has, based on the serial number of mine, which was quite late in production, I think this one dates to probably around 1992-93, somewhere around there. I bought this on eBay about a week after I became a licensed amateur radio operator. And like most new hams, I decided to jump into the hobby with a handheld transceiver. That's usually how most new hams go, because they're inexpensive compared to an HF radio, and you don't need to set up an antenna on your roof or in a tree or whatever. It's a walkie-talkie. That's what it is, and this is how most new radio amateurs get into the hobby. So that's how I went as well. I knew many months before I got licensed, as soon as I knew that I was going to finally try for my license, I knew I wanted to get a handheld radio first and foremost, but I had to do a ton of research figuring out what exactly I wanted to try and shoot for. First of all, I wasn't sure if I should get just a plain 2 meter radio, or if I should get a dual band unit, 2 meter and 70 centimeters. And if you don't know, if you're not a experienced radio amateur, the 2 meter band is 144 to 148 megahertz, and the 70 centimeter band, that's UHF, it's 430 to 450 megahertz. The 2 meter band is where all the local amateur radio action happens. That's where you have repeaters and all that stuff. There's a huge repeater network here in the province of New Brunswick that's built around the 2 meter band. The 70 centimeter band also has repeaters, and it's also mildly popular, but not nearly as much as 2 meters. You can find places that have 70 centimeter repeater networks, and 70 centimeters is especially popular in really congested areas like cities, big cities, where all the 2 meter frequencies might be all used up, so you might have to go to 70 centimeters to find a free frequency if you want to talk simplex to someone. So 70 centimeters is useful in those aspects. Around here, though, it's not used for much at all. Out of the dozens and dozens of repeaters in the province, I think there's less than half a dozen 70 centimeter repeaters. There's only one repeater on the International Repeater Group network that's 70 centimeters, and there's one local 70 centimeter repeater here. But it's not very useful at all. The range on it's very poor. I can't hit it from here at my apartment, just a couple kilometers away, and I can hit it from school, which is like less than a kilometer away, but you have to hold the radio up in the air and stuff. It's a very poor repeater. They recently just set it up, so I think they're still tuning the antennas on it. But yeah, the range on it's very poor. So yeah, 70 centimeters is not used much here at all. So I wasn't sure if I should bother spending the extra money, because it was most likely going to be extra money, to get a dual band radio, or if I should just stick with a single band 2 meter radio. And of course, another good reason to stick with a single band radio is just because where they're electronically simpler, you're probably more likely to get a good working one if you buy used, which is what I did, of course. The second conflict I had leading up to buying this thing was whether I should get a brand new radio or a used radio. because amateur radio transceivers are really expensive. Also, this was mid-January when I bought this thing, and as you guys might know, the Canadian dollar has really crashed over the past year. And around the time I bought this thing, it was actually at its lowest point ever. It's better now. It's a few cents higher than it was back when I bought this thing. But yeah, the Canadian dollar was horrible when I bought this thing. So no matter what I bought, I was gonna pay way extra money on it. So the big question was I gonna pay big money just a couple weeks after Christmas to buy an amateur radio transceiver, or should I buy used and save some money but have the risk of not having a warranty and possibly getting a radio that's not going to work correctly? Because of course an amateur radio transceiver is quite a complicated device electronically, and when you get into older ones you get into age-related problems with aging electrolytic capacitors and stuff. So it was a really big conflict going on in my head while I was researching all this stuff. I didn't know if I should buy new or if I should buy used. There was yet a third conflict in this though, and that conflict is named Baofeng. Baofeng radios are super cheap. They're the cheapest amateur radio transceivers you can buy right now, and they're by far the most popular amateur radio transceivers in the world right now. And yeah, I could have gotten a Baofeng, which is a fully featured dual band transceiver, for like $30. So obviously that was very tempting. But I thought, you know, if I get a Baofeng, and the reality is the Baofengs are quite crappy radios compared to something from ICOM or Yaesu or Kenwood or Allen-Co. And I thought, you know, if I spend $30 for this Baofeng, in under a year, I'm gonna be, you know, pining for another radio already. I'm gonna want a better one. That's just the reality of it. And I would consider a really old radio like this to be better than a Baofeng for several reasons. So I thought, you know, if I spend the money on a Baofeng, it's not going to be much money spent, and the Baofeng might or might not last me a good long time. But I think I want to just, you know, I want to dive in and start off with a good radio. And I took this to Reddit. There's an amateur radio subreddit, and I use Reddit quite a bit if you don't know. And I asked on Reddit, and I said, what do you guys think? Should I buy this Baofeng? Or should I pay a ton of money for a new radio? Or should I pay less money, but still more money than a Baofeng, for a used good radio? And the general consensus was, screw the Baofengs. If absolutely possible, which it was for me, get a good radio, either new or used. So I decided ultimately to try and scour eBay and shoot for a good condition, tested working, used radio. And that's what led me to this. So to apply some numbers to this, in the United States, you'll pay about $120, $130 for a single band handheld radio from one of the good manufacturers, and you'll pay around $150, $160 at the low point for a new dual band radio from one of the big four manufacturers. And here in Canada, those numbers go up to around $150, $160 for a single band unit, or at least in January when our dollar was really low, and about $200, $220 for a dual band unit. So, what did I pay for this? This is the most expensive thing that I have ever bought on eBay, and it probably will stay that way for a long time. This showed up on eBay as a buy it now listing for $100 US, and it had free shipping to the US or $30 US shipped to Canada. $12 was the shipping itself, and then $18 for the stupid import fees that eBay now charges you, whether or not those fees are actually applied. eBay makes sellers charge them now. Stupidest thing ever. It's already too expensive to buy stuff from the US on eBay and have it shipped to Canada. But anyway, Yeah, $100 US, free shipping to the US, or $30 US shipped to Canada. I could have gotten this shipped to the US. However, I figured that customs would probably make me pay duty for it when I brought it over, so I decided to have it shipped straight to Canada. So, $130 US shipped directly here. When you do the conversion based on where the dollar was at the time I bought this thing, this came out to about 180 Canadian dollars. So I actually almost paid as much for this thing as I would have paid for a brand new radio. That's pretty risky. That's not the smartest, it's not the smartest buy I've ever made, but it came out good in the end because this thing is absolutely perfect and I love this radio so much. And as far as I'm concerned, it was worth every penny that I paid for it. So that's the story of how I got this thing. Now, I actually paid a lot more for this radio than I could have paid for another good working used radio on eBay. This particular model of radio is actually one of the most coveted and sought after used older amateur radio transceivers. And there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, these were just built really, really well. They're incredibly high build quality and these sound great. The receive audio sounds excellent and these sound fantastic on the air. Another reason is because you can still get replacement batteries for this particular model pretty easily. Older handheld amateur radio transceivers, pretty much every handheld amateur radio transceiver ever made, takes a battery pack, a rechargeable battery pack, usually with NiCad cells inside it. And with the older ones, obviously, replacement packs aren't being made anymore. So when you get one of these, and if it comes with an original battery pack, it's going to be dead. You either have to cut open the pack and try to replace the cells yourself, or hope that you can find, usually most handheld amateur radio transceivers also came with an optional AA battery pack. It was a battery pack that you could open up and it took regular AA batteries. But they're usually quite rare to find for older radios today. They just didn't sell very many units. So it can be really hard to get an older handheld working on batteries again because it's so hard to find a good a good remanufactured battery pack or a AA battery pack. But with this particular model, it's super easy. Because these are so coveted today, China actually manufactures replacement, they're probably not NiCad, they're probably nickel metal hydride, replacement battery packs for these. And China is also making AA battery packs for these. How fantastic is that? That is pretty sweet. So if you have one of these, or another Yaesu like it, a different model that uses the same battery pack, because there were a few, you can still use these things no problem, because you can still get replacement rechargeable batteries or replacement AA holders on eBay. That's totally awesome, and that's why these things are quite coveted still. Another reason is because this particular radio has a couple of features that are really, really unique, and they're really nice to have. And it was hardly another handheld radio made that had features like them. So these are quite popular for that reason. But mostly it's just because these are super high quality radios, so well built. So yeah, those are some of the reasons why I decided to pay really a lot of money for this radio rather than less money for another radio, which I could have done. As an example, I was watching an Alanco, before I bought this, I was watching an Alanco DJ180T on eBay. That's a single band 2-meter handheld from the mid-90s. And I almost bought it. I could have gotten it for, if I remember right, it was like $50 or something like that. But I was in school, I didn't have my laptop, all I had was my phone. And I went to bid on my phone, and at the last second, eBay made me sign in on my phone. And I didn't remember my password, so I lost it. I didn't get it, I ran out of time. But had I not had that issue, I would have been able to buy that radio for $50. But I paid a lot more for this because this is a really great radio to have, and also it looks so cool. I love how this radio looks. And these aren't very common to find anymore. You don't find these very often on eBay. Shortly after I bought this one, a couple more showed up on eBay in way worse condition for a little less money. But since then, I don't think there have been any of these show up on eBay. They're not as common as other older transceivers. So when this showed up on eBay, you know, it was a lot of money, and I talked to Mom about it, and she said, if you want it, fine. So I jumped for it, and I'm really glad I did. This is such a beautiful radio, and really, I plan on keeping this and using it for as long as it remains working. I have no need of... there's nothing that a brand new radio could offer me that this thing can't. It's just, it does everything that I could ever want out of a handheld. So I shall use this thing until it croaks. Alright, that concludes the first part on this video series of the Yaesu FT-470 amateur radio transceiver. This is going to be an extremely long video, I found out, so I'm going to upload it as a multi-part series. So in the next part, I'm going to cover a little history on this radio and start covering some technical details on it. So join me then. I hope to see you there, and I hope you enjoyed this part, and I'll see you in the next one.